is the most beautiful racetrack in America, hands down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the breeding stock sale. Book one. Good to have you back with us.
And welcome in, everybody. A pleasant good evening. Jeremy Plonk with Horse Player Now with the second season of the Keeneland Look Ahead podcast. We debuted this in April. So the second season for the video podcast, my 29th meet working for Keeneland, dating way back to the early mid-2000s. So a pleasure to be back with you once again. We had a great fan response to this, so hopefully we'll make it even a little bit better here during the course of the fall meet. Hopefully my handicapping will go as well as it went in the spring. Had a really strong spring meet. Doesn't always work out that way, but let's hope we take the momentum into the fall meet. If you haven't watched the look ahead in the past, what we do is every night, 8:30 Eastern, we preview the next day's card at Keeneland, and we give you a look at the weather, the horses to watch for the next day, the track trends that we might have seen from today's racing and how it may play out tomorrow. We'll get occasionally some interviews from Tom Leach of Connections who are running tomorrow, some video highlights as well. We'll look ahead to all the big races, every racing eve, if you will, the night before every racing card throughout the entire meet, including the Breeders' Cup, which caps off a fantastic season. Any Keeneland fall meet is a good one. It kicks off with Fall Stars weekend, but when it ends with that cherry on top with the Breeders' Cup at the end, as it did in 2015 and again in 2020, it is extra special. We've got opening weekend coming up. They call it Fall Stars weekend. Of course, the first 3 days of racing have already been drawn. Thursday through for Sunday, drawn today. So as we look ahead to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we know the fields. We know who's coming. We've got superstars. We've got Breeders' Cup existing champions. And we probably have Breeders' Cup future champions as well coming on the track. Look, opening week, the last 5 years, I ran some stats on the database that we have at Keeneland.com, the free handicapping database. Be sure to check that out in the handicapping section. I'm proud to have started that almost, 15 plus years ago now. And it's still there. You can utilize all the access of downloading it into a spreadsheet if you want, look at it on the screen, but you can filter and sort and find just about any answer you want to a handicapping question with a little bit of work. I looked at the opening weekend of the last 5 fall meets, and what I found was favorites are 49 for 154. So they're hitting right around 1 out of 3. 50 out of 150 would be 1 out of 3. That's about what you expect in the old days, but favorites now seem to win 37, 38% nationally. So we're going to see a little bit less than what you're used to in the national norm in terms of favorites. And the prices have been outstanding in the last 5 opening weekends at Keeneland. The average winner, 6.6 to 1 odds, almost 7 to 1. So you're looking at a $15, $16 average mutual here opening weekend. Where the horses are going to come from this weekend and win, well, it's been spread, and you couldn't be any more spread than this. Kentucky Downs has produced 34 winners opening week the last 5 years. Churchill Downs 32 and Saratoga 31. So the spread is 34, 32, 31. Advantage no one. But when you get to the stakes races that we have this weekend, this is where you want to notice that there is a major shift in where the horses come from. It's about Saratoga. We've run 49 opening weekend stakes the last 5 years. 17 of the winners from Saratoga. If you take Kentucky Downs and Churchill combined, they have 18. So Saratoga flexes its muscles opening weekend with horses who last race at the Spa in New York when they come down here. So that's what we're going to look for. Brad Cox, the fast starting trainer opening week the last 5 years. He's had 10 wins opening weekend. That's most of any trainer. Mike Makers had 9. Mark Cassie's had 9, but Cassie hasn't had any the past 2 years. He used to be the big rabbit jumping out of the meet. If Mark Cassie gets off to a fast start with his first starter or two here opening weekend, jump aboard because he's been known to be hot in the past. But the last 2 fall meets, not so much. But when you watch the Brad Cox horses, we told you about those 10 opening weekend wins. 8 of them 8 of them have come with the 2-year-olds. So Brad Cox's 2-year-olds are primed to go right off the bat at Keeneland in the fall. Now, if you watched the look ahead in the past, you'll know these 2 screens that are going to come up. But if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to introduce you to them. First is a look at the Keeneland handicapper selection box from Keeneland.com. This is where Scott Hazelton and Gabby Gaudet from TVG and the simulcast signal at Keeneland join Kim Nelson, Tom Leach, the voice of the Wildcats, and myself. The 5 of us give our top 3 picks for every race of the meet. You can get those free. I like to use it in this podcast to refer to horses that look like they're going to be heavily bet or races that look like they could be wide open. When we see consistent horses picked the same with 5 public handicappers, we get a pretty good sense that's the way the public's probably going to end up going. If we get races where there's a big scramble and everybody's got a different horse picked on top, you can probably look at those races as being more wide open, and that helps you set your plan for the day. And that brings me to the big picture. This is something we introduced in the spring, and I just love this. It's helped my personal handicapping. This is what I do on a race card. I scratch it down on paper, but I put it in graphic format for you here. I want to know when the wagers start that I need to get a hold of, which ones may overlap on a particular day, and where my best bets on the card are. I'll give you my 3 key plays every day, and we had a ton of success with these in the spring meet. But it gives you a sense, not just following my picks, but how you sketch out and how you strategize for a day of racing at Keeneland or any meet for that. The green TP3 or the Turf Pick 3, the $3 Keeneland Turf Pick 3 with the low takeout is back again this year. It'll be on races 4, 8, and 10. We'll talk more about that in just a moment as we set up the card at Keeneland. But as usual, the wagering format is pretty strict and to history here for the fall meet this year. Pick 5 starts, races 1 through 5. It'll also be the last 5 on the card, races 6 through 10. So where you see P5 next to the race 1, that means that wager starts in that race. So there's a pick 5 starting in race 1, a pick 4 starting in race 2, and so forth down the line. Race 5, you'll see the pick 6 starts. Any stakes races we have on the card, we'll denote those with the word stakes. And 7, 8, and 9, the races on opening day are the stakes races. Interesting change to the stakes menu before we get into our handicapping. We've seen the Phoenix Stakes as part of the opening day for a while now. We've seen the Alcibiades for a long time as part of the fall meet opening day. But new to the opening day lineup is the Jessamine Stakes. This used to be run the Wednesday of week 2. It was a little bit tighter time frame for those 2-year-old fillies to get ready for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. They moved it back to opening day, so it's now run 5 days sooner than it had been in the past, and makes for a more bolstered stakes lineup on opening day. So welcome to the Jessamine Stakes, new to the opening day lineup. Let's get handicapping and get into it here on this 10-race card. At Keeneland, we've got 10 races on the Friday program. That'll pretty much be the standard throughout the season. We'll have an 11-race card on Saturday. Smaller cards, 9 races to 8 races during some of the weekdays, but we start with the 10-race program. Let's get to the handicappers picks in race number 1, because I'll tell you what, there are races I'm going to love this season at Keeneland, and then there are going to be races that I struggle with. This is a struggle right off the start. I ended up going with higher authority in here. The Churchill horses do very well at these lower claiming levels at Keeneland. The 7 furlong stakes races, you want a horse who can be somewhat close to the lead. So I've got to get higher authority a little bit closer to lead than the past running lines indicate. But I like the Churchill shippers coming in for races like this at the 16,000 or less level. They've won 21 races of the 73 offered in fall meets. No other circuits produce more than 8 winners. So the leanest of the Churchill horses in here. Higher authority will be my top pick in here. You know, one of the things about this race is we've got Wesley Ward, we've got Mike Maker. Ward's got Alfie Solomons in here with Verve the 1 is Mike Maker. These 2 trainers get bet a lot at Keeneland. They've had a lot of success and they deserve it. But through that database that we have, the Keeneland handicapping database, go through and scroll by trainers and see what races they win. Where are their strengths? Like Wesley Ward, we know he's very good with 2-year-olds. We know he's elite with turf sprinters. Mike Maker, some of the older, higher-level claimers, the turf horses, that's where he makes his hay. Neither one of those guys has had a lot of success with lower-level dirt claimers like this. So this might be a situation where you've got some vulnerable horses who are going to get bet. Alfie Solomons with Verve on class drops. If they get bet and don't fire, you might get a chance to hit a little bit of a price in here. I'll go with higher authority. As you see the handicappers across, we've got 4 different horses picked on top amongst us. The 1, 3, 5, and 9 all get top picks with Verve. That Mike Maker trainee does have 2 top picks, Kim Nelson and Tom Leach. But this looks like a pretty wide open race number 1, and that's why we take a look at this kind of spread and the consensus in the handicapping. Let's go to the big board, and we go to race number 2, where the pick 4 will begin. The early pick 4, races 2 through 5. That means if you get an opinion on the early pick 4, races 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to overlap with the pick 5. So if you have no opinion on the first race on a card, or a very weak opinion, maybe you want to play the pick 4 that day if your races 2, 3, 4, and 5 are more locked down. If you have a focused opinion on race number 1 and a horse you like, then maybe you bypass the pick 4 in race 2 and go all in for the pick 5 in race number 1. A lot of it depends on your opinion in race 1. Again, I'm not that strong on my pick in the first race today, or on Friday. So probably for me, the pick 4 is going to be a better strategy for me to attack in here. I like focused tickets. I don't like spread tickets with a lot of what ifs to them. I like to play my opinions and back them solidly. So I will stick to races like that. Race number 2 is one where I think we've got a solid opinion. 3 top pick winners in here. Misread, the 2-horse, Alstall Trains. This is a Joel Rosario mount pickup, and he replaces Colby Hernandez on this horse, and just a great style fit, right? I mean, one of the top closing jockeys in America is Joel Rosario. He can finish with a horse from off the pace. Misread should be coming on late over this 7-furlong sprint. In these races, this is a maiden race. We see the horses with experience at Keeneland in the fall with these elder maiden special weight races seem to have a major advantage. We get very few first-time starters who win in this kind of situation. So we've only had, 2 out of 45 where first-time starters won these older maiden special weight dirt races in the fall at Keeneland here since we've gone back to dirt. So those wins came in 2016 and 2017. I say that because Magical Act for Brad Cox, and here's going to get bet a lot. A well-bred Tappet filly in her career debut. But again, only 4 of the 45 races run in this kind of situation, only 2 have been won by first-time starters. So I'm going to go with the experience in here in the 2 Misread. Scripps is a first-time starter you certainly want to keep an eye on. A Curlin filly. Curlin's run anywhere, but they run well at Keeneland as well. So I think Misread with the experience gets the nod in here, and 3 of the 5 public handicappers, me, Gabby Scott, all going on Misread. And I just think it's a good jockey fit with Joel Rosario. Let's move on to the 3rd race on the program. And while the 3rd race doesn't start any wagers, as we look at on the big board, it is part of the pick 4. It's the 2nd leg. It's part of the pick 5. It's the 3rd leg. And it's my first key play of the meet because I've got an 8-1 shot in here that I think might be able to upset the Brad Cox likely favorite in here. Key of Life is going to be favored for Brad Cox, and why not? Comes off a big win at Churchill Downs last time out in a decent time, 110-1, and they're going to back Key of Life. Now, remember, we told you Brad Cox's 10 opening weekend wins the last 5 years. 8 of those were 2-year-olds. This is a 2-year-old, so this is his wheelhouse. But why do I want to try to pick against Brad Cox on a logical horse who won last time out, Key of Life? I'm going to go with the 2 Santa Fe Gold. I think this is a horse who's had a good drill since the last start, has 3 races under her belt, and she's got a little bit extra experience in here. But what I like is trainer Brett Calhoun. He brought a horse here last year named Teano Twist to win almost an identical race, a first-level 2-year-old allowance sprint. And Teano Twist just had a little more experience and talent right off the block. So I'm kind of going for a little deja vu angle in here. Santa Fe Gold, we'll see if the Teano Twist repeat can happen for trainer Brett Calhoun. I like this one here, the 2-horse in race number 3. That's my first key play of the day, an 8-1 in the morning line. And we might get every bit of that 8-1 because Twice as Sweet's going to get bet off a couple good races and a win last out at Ellis Park. And we know Key of Life is going to be heavily favored in here for trainer Brad Cox. So let's get a shot in there with Santa Fe Gold. If you're playing the pick 4s and the pick 5s, the bold move would be to single here. And if you beat Cox, the ticket blows up. The safe and conservative, and probably not the recommended way to go, would be also to include Key of Life in this situation. But again, to the victors go the spoils. Be bold in your bets. If you're trying to hit pick 4s and pick 5s, you don't want to put together $40 tickets that pay $71 and you barely don't even double your money on hitting a pick 4 or pick 5, which is so difficult to do. Be bold. Santa Fe Gold is my key play early in the day. If she's able to upset the big Cox favorite in here, Key of Life, then we're not talking about a $72 pick 4 or pick 5 in here. We're talking about some big balloons. And so I'm going to take that one as my key play on the early portion of the card. Let's go to the 4th race on the program. And this is a spot where Two of us are on Johnny Unleashed, Scott Hazelton and myself. Gabby Gaudette, Kim Nelson on Strike Me Down, and Tom Leach is on an island here with Robo Man. Race number 4 is our first turf sprint of the meet, and it's going to kick off in the wager sequences that you see in the green TP3. It's the turf pick 3. So the $3 minimum wager, low takeout. This is a great bet. The 3 turf races, the 3 final turf races on any card are the Keeneland Turf Pick 3 on each racing program. Today, we have just 3 turf races for Friday to look at. So races 4, 8, and 10 will comprise that pick 3. Pick the winners in those 3 races. They're not in succession, but you need all 3 winners and all 3 legs to cash. But great payoff because of the $3 minimum really knocks out a lot of tickets, and you get paid by losing tickets. Remember, that's what it's all about. With some of the 10, 50-cent, dollar wagers, not as many losing tickets are getting knocked out each sequence and each time a race is run. So there's more winners left around to pay, and therefore you get smaller payoffs. So bigger payoffs, low takeout, a lot works in your favor. This turf sprint here in race number 4 is really Wesley Ward country, right? That we talked about Wesley Ward earlier, and what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How about this? Wesley Ward has 31 turf sprint wins at Keeneland since 2017. We've only run 104 turf sprints, folks. He's won 31 of them. Just an unbelievable percentage. Guess who's second behind Wesley Ward and how far back they are with turf sprint wins? It's Rusty Arnold, and you might have guessed that because he's had some nice turf sprinters here over the years. Rusty's got 6 since 2017. Wesley has 31. It's absolutely complete dominance. So the first thing you want to do when you handicap a turf sprint at Keeneland is look for Wesley Ward. And Wesley Ward in this particular spot has number 3, Joker on Jack. And Joker on Jack's going to be a legitimate contender in here. This horse comes off the synthetic at Presque Isle Downs. But notice the handicappers. We're all trying to pick against Joker on Jack. I've got him second. Gabby's got him second. Kim's got him third. People aren't trusting that form that we saw at Presque Isle Downs and at Turfway prior. We saw this horse in April of 2021, a year and a half ago, run third over this turf course. We'll see. I mean, Jose Ortiz rides for Wesley Ward. But this is one where the public's going to bet Joker on Jack, I think, pretty decently because of the Ward factor. But all the public handicappers are, maybe we're getting cute, but we're trying to find an alternative because we really don't trust this particular favorite in here. This is one where you don't bet against the Ward horse in the pick 4, pick 5. You definitely want to use Joker on Jack the 3. But intra-race, if you're looking for a better price, maybe we can find an upsetter. There's not that much speed in this race. I went with Johnny Unleashed, and Johnny Unleashed is a horse who's had success here on the turf, sprinting. No wins, 0 for 6, but 3 in the money finishes and a 4th place finish in the Woodford Stakes last year at this time. So instead of running in the Saturday turf sprint graded stakes like he did last year when running 4th, Johnny Unleashed is coming into the allowance ranks, and this horse since then validated that form with a 2nd place finish in the Shakertown. So a 2nd in the Shakertown, a 4th in the Woodford last year. Johnny Unleashed has run really well against the best turf sprinters at Keeneland. This is not nearly as tough a spot. Now, the downfall is you were 70-1 in the Shakertown and you were 34-1 in the Woodford here last fall meet. It's going to be a much shorter price on Johnny Unleashed. But I don't think there's a lot of early speed in here, and a hustling jockey like Gerardo Corrales might put Johnny Unleashed on the lead. I think this is a 2-deep race. Maybe you go to the 7 Roboman as the 3rd because of Joel Rosario's propensity to be so successful in turf sprints here. He's won 15 of them in the last 5 years. That's most of any jockey. Rosario in the 7, maybe you go 3 deep in this situation, but you certainly, I think Johnny Unleashed is to play intra-race. If you can get 5-1, maybe 4-1 to beat the Ward in here, I think it's a good win bet. And then I would use the 3 Joker on Jack and maybe the 7 Roboman as well, depending on how deep you go in the other legs of your ticket. But if you had a turf sprint where you had Wesley Ward covered, Joel Rosario covered, and the horse you like best in the race, that's a pretty good 3 deep. So maybe that's the way you want to approach race number 4. 5th on the card as we go back to the big board is the start of the pick 6. Pick 6 is $1 wager at Keeneland, not a jackpot pick 6. Traditional pick 6 here, but the $1 minimum. And the pick 6 begins in race number 5 with a really interesting cast here. These are allowance fillies, 3-year-olds. Do we have older in here? Yeah, 3 and up. But interestingly, we've got fillies, 3-year-olds who came out of this year's Ashland, the grade 1 in the spring at Keeneland, the Fantasy at Oaklawn, and the Iowa Oaks. So there's some stakes caliber fillies in this allowance race. As alumni of that one, I'm going to go to a filly who hasn't really shown the higher level yet, but I think she's sneaky. And I think a couple other people are seeing the same thing I am. Her name is Olga Isabel, the 12. Scott's got her on top. I've got her on top. Kim Nelson's got her on top. And Tom Leach has her picked second. Now, she's only run 2 times, and I thought this might be a little sneaky play because, she's run on some big cards. After her 4th place career debut at Gulfstream Park, they brought her back on Kentucky Oaks Day to run on the undercard in a maiden special weight race. Typically, a horse who ran 4th in the debut at Gulfstream is not going to show up on Oaks Day. The owners don't want to get involved in the big crowd, the hullabaloo, unless you got something. Then you want to run and you want to make a play. You think you're going to get a price because you're looking at, big pools, and a big play is not going to impact them. You'll get overlooked because all the big barns are involved. Well, she got let go at 10-1 and basically went wire to wire for Gustavo Delgado, Gulfstream Park-based a trainer in Florida most of the year. But he's had her now since that Oaks Day, training at the Thoroughbred Center here in Lexington. And I think Olga Isabel is sneaky because now they bring her back opening day at Keeneland for her next start. They want to run when there's a lot of eyeballs and there's a lot of money in the pools. Interesting here. I think Olga Isabel with Joel Rosario is a sneaky play in here, but I'm not alone. Again, 3 of the 5 Keeneland handicappers are going that route. Others in here to consider: no Silver Spoon here, coming out of the Iowa Oaks. This is a filly who won a $100,000 maiden claimer in her debut for Brad Cox back in the April meet. She was claimed that day by Jeff Hiles. She's come back to run good at Churchill. Dull effort last time in the Iowa Oaks, but she's fresh and working towards this. And the 8 Towser one you want to keep an eye on as well. She's by Into Mischief, who's the leading sire at Keeneland. Since the dirt transition back in the fall of 2014, no sires had more success on this main track than Into Mischief, especially with the 7 furlong races. I love Into Mischief's running 7 furlongs. 14 winners going 7 furlongs specifically at Keeneland for sire Into Mischief. That's easily the most of any stallion. Towser, the 8 horse here in race number 5, isn't Into Mischief going 7 furlongs. One you want to consider. Olga Isabel, Towser, no Silver Spoon here. I think those 3 get you through race number 5, and that gets you through the first leg of the pick 6. And it also wraps up all the early wagers early in the day, right? Pick 5 on races 1 through 5, pick 4 on races 2 through 5. So in race number 5 here, if we get the sneaky horse in on top, Johnny Unleashed, that's a good thing. But Joker on Jack, or I should say Olga Isabel, here in race number 5, the 12 we're trying to get in. But Towser and no Silver Spoon here, certainly horses you want to consider. This is a race where I would go 3 deep in the pick 5 to wrap up that sequence, and 3 deep in the pick 4 to wrap it up in race number 5 as well. As we turn to the right-hand side of the page on the big picture, then the final 5 races on the card start in the 6th race. That means we're going to have a pick 5 starting right here. And we told you Brad Cox's 2-year-olds must be watched. Opening weekend at Keeneland. He is outstanding with these, and I think Golden Bandit, the 1, is his 2-year-old winner on the card, as does Gabby Gaudette, as does Tom Leach. The 3 of us have Golden Bandit picked on top. Kim and Scott also have this one underneath. Not only is it Brad Cox, but Golden Bandit is a offspring, a colt by Midnight Loot. And Midnight Loot, of course, the Breeders' Cup Sprint champion, has an exceptional record here with horses at Keeneland, a good ROI. They win about 21% of the time with more than 60 starters. So Midnight Loot is a proven Keeneland horse for course sire. His horses do well here. I just expect you'll see Florent Giroux send this one from the rail, and they'll just go and break. And Golden Bandit, my top pick to win race number 6. If you're looking for other options in here, certainly keep an eye on the also eligible list. Easy Action for Norm Cassie comes off a big second to Loggins, a horse who's going to run in Saturday's Breeders' Futurity and maybe goes as favored in the Breeders' Futurity. So Easy Action, the 16, is an obvious horse to consider if drawing in from the also eligible list. To me, it's Golden Bandit, the 1. I would use the 6, Easy Action, as well if that one draws in. If they don't draw in, then it simply becomes a race where it's all about Golden Bandit for me winning that one. Now, We're starting the late pick 5. I don't have a strong opinion on the other 2-year-olds in that race. So we take the one Golden Bandit, we single in the pick 5, and we just move on from it. It's not a race I'm going to get heavily involved with intra-race, but I think we can just go and single there. If the 16 draws in off the AE list, I do think it's worth a 2-deep situation. I know that doubles the cost of your ticket, but I do think both of those are very viable options, the 1 and the 16 in race number 6 if both were to run. Late pick 4 with the guaranteed pool starts in race number 7. And in the 7th race, we've got the first of our stakes races. And the field for the 5th, the Phoenix, the Stoll Keenan Ogden Phoenix Stakes, includes last year's defending champion. Let's go back to last year's win by Special Reserve.
They are at the post. And they're off in the stall. Keenan Ogden Phoenix. Special Reserve is quick into stride. Special Reserve, the favorite, right to the front, but has company. Quick Tempo going to kick in down toward the inside, and Quick Tempo moves up now and takes the early lead. Leads it by a length. Special Reserve content to back off into the second position by 3/4 of a length. Just Might, third up on the outside. Mucho, fourth against the rail into the far turn. Sir Alfred James, a lane off the rail at 5th. 5 lengths off the lead. Aloha West is in 6th. Then a break of 5 more to the late running Endorsed. Opening quarter went in 21.9 seconds. Round the far turn, Quick Tempo, the leader. Quick Tempo by 3/4 of a length. Special Reserve starts to move forward on the outside, joined by Just Might, who's third to the top of the stretch, 2 lengths off the front pair. So Special Reserve now has taken a narrow lead. Just Might is second. Mucho tries to pick them up third, and behind horses trying to angle down toward the inside. Hasn't found the room yet. Now finds it. Has to find more, though, to catch Special Reserve. Late run Aloha West from 4th to 3rd toward 2nd on the outside. Special Reserve has the lead by 3. Aloha West is running on, but the 16th pole is here. The wire is coming. Special Reserve chased all the way down the stretch by Aloha West. Special Reserve, Aloha West. Special Reserve hangs on by a head over Aloha West to stake the stall. Keenan Ogden Phoenix, 1 minute 8.54.
So will it be a repeat performance for last year's winner, Special Reserve? Look at the public handicappers, race number 7. It's Sibelius, and Kim Nelson on the island, giving Special Reserve the return pick. Now, I also went with Sibelius along with 3 of my other handicappers there in the selector's box, because I like the early speed for Sibelius. This is a race in the Phoenix where I don't think there's a ton of really early gas in here. I think Sibelius is the fastest of the bunch. It's run a couple big numbers. I'm not a speed figure person at all, but this horse Sibelius seems to be in top form right now for Jeremiah O'Dwyer. Could be the now horse moving in the right direction, as they say. Horses from Saratoga have had a lot of success in the Phoenix, horses who prepped last at Saratoga. We have none of those in this race to choose from, but Sibelius did run at Saratoga twice, won there over the summer, before getting a prep win last time out at Pimlico in the light diffuse stakes. Pimlico running a rare September meet this year. So that was a race that maybe came up on the calendar in the region, and they could get Sibelius an easy victory, which they did there by 7+ lengths, and get some stakes black type on the resume. I'm going to take Sibelius to try to go wire to wire in here. Hopefully Junior Alvarado puts him on the front. Special Reserve, certainly I respect. Last year ran the fastest race of the meet at 6 furlongs by 0.59 seconds. So almost 3 lengths faster, more than 3 lengths faster, really, than any other 6 furlong race at the meet. We know this horse likes Keeneland, but only 2 starts this year, 1 at Laurel, 1 at Mountaineer. They've been spread out. I don't know where he's at in his form, Special Reserve. If he's as good as he was last year, he wins it again. If he's not, then I think Sibelius will be too tough to catch. But do not get too deep into this race in terms of upset potential. Since going back to dirt 8 years ago, the Phoenix Stakes has been run here at Keeneland in the fall meet with 6 winning favorites, 6 of 8 favorites. Only 1 winner was higher than 3-1. So front-running horses right near the pace at a short price, that gives you Special Reserve and Sibelius in here. So it has to come down to one of those two. If you're bold, then you're looking at the multi-race wagers. I think you might single Sibelius in here and take your chances. If you really like Special Reserve, I think you single Special Reserve in here. But I don't think you go too deep. I think if you have an opinion, if Special Reserve is as good as he was last year and you think he is, he's the single. If he's not as good as he was last year and you think he's vulnerable, then I think you take the shot here, you go bold, and you single in race number 7, the Phoenix Stakes, and I'll do so with Sibelius. Now let's go to the 8th race on the card. The 8th race in Stakes Company is the second leg of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. It's the J.P. Morgan Chase Jessamine Stakes, Grade 2 company here, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. We've seen this race be a big factor over the years. Loch Coronel and some really nice fillies have won it. We've seen some horses go to the Breeders' Cup, Juvenile Turf Fillies, and do well. A little bit extra time, as we mentioned at the top of the program. This race is 5 days earlier than it's traditionally been on the calendar. Usually the kickoff to the Wednesday of week 2 at Keeneland, but the Jessamine now an opening day feature. I just think there's a hot pace in here. This is a very hot pace. And the average winner of this race over the last 16 years, going back in our Keeneland database, it's 16 years old in the 17th year now. The average winner of the Jessamine has been 5 lengths behind after the opening half mile. That is a major closer's profile for a race, and we have some speed in this race and a hot pace. So I'm looking for closers in here, and for me, I'm going down to the inside with Sabalenka. Sabalenka, the 1 horse, and the 11, Knock Your Socks Off. These are the 2 closers in here that you want to watch. Knock Your Socks Off gets the edge as the top pick for me because I think we're going to get a little bit better price than we will versus Sabalenka. Flavian Pratt rides. I thought in the Kentucky Downs Juvenile Turf Fillies, this one moved a little bit too fast. Knock Your Socks Off. Now we get a jockey change to Pratt. Let's get a patient ride. Just make one move. And I think the one closing move in here to win it is going to be successful. Whether it's the 11 or the 1 Sabalenka, those are the 2 that I really look forward to in here. I think there's some vulnerable favorites, a tough post draw for the 12 who's got speed in here. There's a lot of early pace. I'm going to go too deep. I'm relying on 2 closers, but the way to bet this race is the 11 and the 1 are the 2 focal points. You try to get in and out of them in some daily doubles and some pick 3s, pick 4s. Any way you can try to utilize these 2 horses because it's my key play of the day, number 2. In race number 8 here, we're talking. I've got closers who fit the profile of this race and the pace of this race, which is hot. So I'm going to use the 1 and the 11 in here, 6 ways to Sunday, as they say, as many ways as you can work them in together. You're going to play them straight. You're going to play them in exactas, maybe work in a horse or 2 you like with them for exactas or tries if you want to get deeper. But daily doubles in and out of the 8th race, pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s. I want to get a good look at the 1 Sabalenka and the 11 Knock Yourself Out on all my tickets. And if one of those 2 closers wins, I feel good that I'm going to cash a good ticket. That's my 8th race play. And as you see, my key play number 3 as we move to the 9th race on the card, the Darley Alcibiades, I've got another key play back in here. So if I've got key plays in back-to-back races, strategize, folks. Think about it. Daily double, daily double. You got 2 races in a row that you have strong opinions of. So we've got the 2 closers in race number 8 that we want to heavily lean on, the 1 and the 11. And then in race 9, I'm going to the 1 Wonder Wheel. I thought in her first start or 2 that she was the cream of the 2-year-old filly crop in America. She disappointed me when she ran second in the spin away at Saratoga last time, but she's trained exceptionally well since then in terms of the times. She had a bullet workout on the Belmont training track that was fast as a 40. This is a 2-year-old filly. 2-year-old filly out working older horses in the morning with a bullet work at Belmont for this. I'm all in on Wonder Wheel. It's my key play number 3 of the day. I think she wins the Darley Alcibiades Stakes. Trainer Mark Casse won this race in 2012 and 2013 when it was on the Poly. He won it in 2017 since. And we talked about that sire Into Mischief, how good his horses are at Keeneland. Wonder Wheel by Into Mischief. So let's look at the other picks around race number 9 from the Keeneland Public Handicappers. Wonder Wheel, Kim and I both have on top, but you got the 5, the 9, and the 11 also with top choices from our public handicappers. So 4 different public handicappers in here, or 4 different horses are represented by the public handicappers in here as top choices. But for me, it's all about Wonder Wheel in the Alcibiades. 10th and final on the card is a 1.5-mile turf allowance race. And for me, the 4 Federalist Papers will get the call. This was a nice winner here back in April 22nd, a 1.5 mile in a first level allowance race. Drew off and won easily when under the care of trainer Chad Brown. Has since switched barns to Brendan Walsh, who's having a career year this year. So you're not going to move a horse up, taking him away from Chad Brown and sending him to anybody else. But I don't think the drop-off is massive. I think we saw a good effort at Kentucky Downs when Federalist Papers was second in the first start for Brendan Walsh. I think this one comes back with a good post position towards the inside in the 4 hole. And the profile for this race is horses to come off the pace in the 1.5-mile turf allowances. Average winner 5.5, almost 6 lengths back after the opening half mile. So I want to see Federalist Papers under Tyler Gaffleon save a little ground. Take your time. You got 3 turns to work with here. Save ground on that first turn. Give away a little bit early, and then come with the move. I think it's Federalist Papers to wrap it up as the winner in the nightcap. Also give a consideration to the 5 Sweet Urban and the 1 Mia Martini. Look at our final picks from our public handicappers in race number 10. Federalist Papers, top pick for 3 of us. Queen Bourbon and Mia Martini. The other 2 I told you to keep an eye on. Those are the top picks. So this looks like a 1, 4, and 5 situation in numerical order for all the public handicappers to be in the realm. If you want to go 3 deep in the nightcap and wrap things up in the multi-race wagers in the 10th race, as we see all the big multi-race wagers end in the 10th and final race. It's also part of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, the final race in the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. I think there's 3 deep that you want to consider. I'm pretty bullish on Federalist Papers, though, as the top choice in here. If you wanted to single that horse in the Keeneland Turf Pick 3 with that $3 minimum and keep your ticket more focused, I'd certainly recommend that. I'll single Federalist Papers in the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. But if you're spreading a little bit more in the 50-cent pick 4, pick 5, the $1 pick 6, and your budget allows it, certainly you could go and add in the 1 and the 5. But it's the 4 Federalist Papers for me in the 10th and final. That's going to wrap up the Keeneland Look Ahead for our first night of the season. We'll be back with you on Friday night to recap the opening day card and look ahead to Fall Star Saturday, which has just a tremendous lineup of stakes races throughout. Breeders' Cup Champions Golden Pow is back, one of the most scintillating turf sprint performances we've seen at Keeneland via Golden Pow. Of course, last year in the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar, one of the most scintillating turf sprint performances we've seen. Can Golden Pow get it back on Saturday? That's what we'll look forward to talking with you when we rejoin you on Friday night. But on behalf of Horse Player Now and my good friends at Keeneland, it's been a pleasure to bring you the opening day Keeneland Look Ahead. Good luck, and follow us on Twitter at Horse Player Now, and follow Keeneland at Keeneland Racing and at Bet Keeneland. Goodbye, everybody.